our next shortlisted book had the additional honor of being this year's Massey Lecture. The book discusses the invasive nature of the internet. It also provides the means to rein in the access of social media and guard against abuses of state power, all while preserving the great potential of our communication technologies. This is Reset, Reclaiming the Internet for Civil Society, written by Ronald J. Deibert and published by the House of Anansi Press.
Thanks to social media, we have turned our digital lives inside out. We now entrust enormous volumes of data to big tech platforms that have unparalleled insights into our private lives. But there is a dawning recognition that social media are dysfunctional in important ways, that they are contributing to a kind of social and political sickness. But what should be done? Where do we start? Reset is meant to be both a wake-up call and an attempt to answer these questions. One of the aims of the book is to synthesize what I call the painful truths about social media. Truths because there is a growing number of experts who acknowledge these problems, and painful because they describe many serious, unpleasant problems that are difficult to fix. The next step is to move beyond these painful truths and start a conversation about what to do about them. A reset gives us a rare opportunity to imagine an alternative and begin the process of actually bringing it about. To be sure, it won't be easy, nor will it happen overnight. But fatalistic resignation to the status quo is no real alternative either. And that is why I wrote Reset, Reclaiming the Internet for Civil Society.
My name is Nick Thompson, and I'm currently completing my Master's of Public Policy at the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy. I'm also the outgoing co-editor-in-chief of the Public Policy and Governance Review, a student-led public policy publication at the Munk School. Today, I have questions for Ron Deibert, and they're on the book Reset, Reclaiming the Internet for Civil Society. My question is this notion you bring up that restraint and regulation of our online environment should be tailored to match the level of intrusiveness of different practices. You lay this out quite well for surveillance agencies and kind of state-sponsored efforts to monitor individuals online. My question for you, though, is that there are many instances you point to in the book where we find out about intrusive private sector practices, potentially long after they've already commenced or when we've been unaware of their extent. How do you see us being able to monitor the level of intrusiveness of the private sector practices, such as those mentioned in your book, and tailor a restraint to those appropriately?
Well, thank you for that question, Nick. That's a really good one, and it really gets at the heart of some of the issues of the book. You know, we trust so much data to these very large platforms, and yet we don't really know what's going on inside the corporations themselves. They're like black boxes. It's a big mystery. So we need to have some mechanism to peer inside those companies, and especially inside their secret sauce, their algorithms, to make sure something's not going on that is contrary to the public interest. And the way I see it, there are two ways that this can happen. One is through some kind of government regulatory inspection. So you have some kind of algorithmic accountability agency that would routinely go in and inspect what these companies are doing in the public interest without giving away any type of proprietary trade secrets. The other way is in a more distributed fashion. And I would use the example of the work that we do at the Citizen Lab at the University of Toronto. We're constituted as a kind of digital watchdog, and we undertake a kind of adversarial form of algorithmic accountability, meaning we inspect what the companies are doing through a variety of methods, sometimes even reverse engineering. So we're not doing it with their permission, but we're inspecting what they're doing in the public interest. So those two combined, I think, would be a good way to start making sure that we know what these companies are doing beneath the surface or behind the curtains. One way to think about this is by way of an analogy. So if you think about food processing facilities, we have public health agencies, inspectors that routinely go into these factories and make sure that the processes they're following are not going to endanger our safety. But we have nothing like that with respect to these enormous tech platforms. We need to rectify that. We need to have some way to pry open their inner workings and make sure that they're being inspected in the public interest.
Hey everybody, thank you so much to the Donner Foundation and the Donner Book Prize jury for this short list, and I'd like to congratulate all my fellow nominees who I'm sure agree with me that this is such a great honor. Reset was written as part of the CBC Massey Lecture Series, and for me that was honestly a professional dream come true. I'd like to thank all of the folks at CBC, especially Philip Coulter, Greg Kelly, Nala Ayad, Philip for actually suggesting the title of the book, and Hugh Siegel, Natalie Desrosiers, principals at Massey College. The book was published by House of Anansi Press, and they were such a great supportive team throughout this entire process. I'd like to thank Sarah McLaughlin and Bruce Walsh, and especially Janie Yoon, Mary Golokova, and Peter Norman for all of the assistance and support throughout the writing process. I'd also like to thank my agent, Michael Levine. I hope he's watching now. Hello, Michael. Importantly, much of what I write about and research is drawn from my experiences over the last 20 years as director of the Citizen Lab at the University of Toronto. Honestly, working with such a dedicated, bright, smart group of people over this time is just phenomenal. Each day I wake up and feel like I'm going on a great adventure, fighting the good fight. I would thank all of the bad actors out there, the autocrats and greedy commercial surveillance companies whose malfeasance we expose on a regular basis, but actually they don't deserve thanks. Lastly, I'd like to thank my wife, Jane Gowan, and my children, Emily, Rosalind, Ethan, and Michael. You make the world a better place, and I love you dearly. Thank you so much for this recognition.